Trust or test? The choice I made after his ultimatum. When I think back to the day Mason asked for a paternity test, the memory still stings like a fresh wound. We had been together for 3 years. 3 years of laughter, shared dreams, and a love that felt unshakable. Yet on that Friday evening, as I was putting away the dishes, he casually shattered my world. "I want a paternity test," he said, as if he were asking what was for dinner. For a moment I thought I had misheard him. Our son, barely 3 months old, was Mason's mirror image. The same eyes, the same smile. Even Mason's own mother joked that our baby resembled him more than any of her other grandchildren resembled their parents. Yet there he stood, serious, waiting for my response. "Why?" I managed to ask, barely above a whisper. "I just need to be sure," he replied, avoiding my gaze. Those words cut me to the core. Mason wasn't just questioning my loyalty. He was questioning my character, my integrity, my very love for him. I had never given him a reason to doubt me. No unexplained late nights, no suspicious texts, no history of infidelity. Yet here he was, doubting the most sacred bond we shared. That night, while he slept soundly beside me, I lay awake, a storm of emotions raging in my chest, hurt, anger, disbelief. But above all, an overwhelming sadness. This man, the love of my life, believed I was capable of such betrayal. The next morning, I made a decision. "Fine," I told him. "We'll do the test. But I need time to think." Mason explained his doubts later that week. He insisted it wasn't anything I had done. One day, during his lunch break, he stumbled upon an article about a man who discovered, after 20 years, that his 3 children weren't biologically his. That article led him down a rabbit hole of podcasts and videos, all urging men to demand paternity tests. I thought it was all nonsense, he said, but the idea stuck. "You know the baby is yours because you carried him. But how can I be sure?" I listened silently, my heart breaking a little more with every word. His logic was cold and clinical. And while I could understand his fears, to me, they felt like a betrayal. "You don't trust me," I finally said. "It's not about trust. It's about certainty." But to me, it was about trust. The fact that he needed this certainty said more about his belief in me than I wanted to admit. We took the test a week later. Mason opened the envelope with trembling hands while I held our son in my arms. The results were no surprise to me. He was the father. But his visible relief felt like a slap in the face. That night, I moved into the spare bedroom. Mason protested, but I needed space to process everything. The test might have confirmed his paternity, but it didn't repair the damage his doubt had caused. Mason wanted to move forward. He suggested couples therapy, talked about marriage, even mentioned having more children in the future. But I couldn't see past the fracture in our relationship. The trust we had built over 3 years was gone, replaced by lingering resentment I couldn't shake. I began seeing a therapist on my own. Mason did the same, but every session felt like an exercise in futility. How could I rebuild a relationship with someone who had looked me in the eye and questioned my fidelity? 2 months after the results came back, I made my decision. I sat Mason down and told him I couldn't do this anymore. He begged me to reconsider, to think about our family. But I had thought about it, every sleepless night, every therapy session, every silent dinner at the same table yet a world apart. The next week, I moved out, taking our son with me. I had already consulted a lawyer and arranged custody terms. Mason was devastated, but I knew it was the right decision for me. Looking back, I can see where it all went wrong. Mason's doubts didn't come from nowhere. They came from a society that thrives on mistrust, that encourages men to second-guess even the women they love most. While I understood his fears, I couldn't forgive the way he expressed them. I share this story not for sympathy, but as a cautionary tale. Trust is the foundation of any relationship, and once it's broken, it's nearly impossible to rebuild. If you have doubts, talk to your partner. Be honest, but be kind. Sometimes, the cost of certainty is too high. As for me, I'm finding my way forward. It's not easy, but every day, I remind myself that I deserve a love built on trust, not doubt. And so does my son.